Good morning. Welcome back, Ralph. Okay, good morning, everybody. We are on Nun Vav Amin Aleph. Top of the page. Just see if we're on. Okay. The Gemara, the Mishnah stated, that there are three times of the year that everybody gets equal, all the Kohanim. Good morning, Adam. As we know, the Kohanim, there are 24 groups of Kohanim that they broke the Kohanim into 24 groups. Every week, a different group worked in the Beit HaMikdash. That means one family this week, the next week another family, and it was 24 families. And then after every 24 weeks, they restarted again. Family number one worked for its second week of that year. Family number two worked for its second week of that year. That's how they broke up the 24 groups of people. During the holiday season, everybody's on duty. It's not that this is my week and this is your week. Even though whichever week we're going to see. Everybody, you can't say, this happens to be my week this that I get this whole week. All the people that bring the korbanot in honor of the holiday, I'm going to get. Not true. Or there's special animals that come in honor of the holiday. Let's say that we said the first day of Sukkot, there's 30 animals, 30 musafim. You have 13 bulls and you got 14 sheep, and you got 2 rams, you got 1 goat, you got 30 animals. They don't just belong to the group that was that week. Rather, they belong to all the Kohanim, all the 24 Mishmarot. And then the Gemara said, how do you divide it? We have 24 families, so they would, each family would bring one animal. Sometimes they would bring multiple animals that day, because if you have 30 animals and 24 families, so some families that day would get a double, but the next day, the next family would get, other families would get doubles. And that's how they try to do it as fair as possible. That at the end of the day, the Gemara said when it came to the bulls, there were 2 families that didn't get a third opportunity. And the last 2 families out of the 24 families on the list, if you're 23 and 24 on the list, you did not get a third opportunity to bring the bull. Okay, but the Mishnah says that but anything that came as a result of the korban of that week, let's say the Shabbat of that week, every Shabbat has animals that come on Shabbat. Nothing to do with the Yom holiday, nothing to do with the Yom Tov. And those would go specifically for the family that happens to be their week. The family that was their week in the cycle, they would bring those animals and they would get the benefits of those animals, whatever certain animals, let's say the skin of the animals go to the Kohanim. So they would get the hide, they would get the skin. The daily korban, the daily offering, the tamid that was brought every day and every afternoon, that has nothing to do with Yom Tov. The Kohanim that were on duty that week would get their week. They would get the skins, let's say, of the korban tamid. What about the lechem hapanim? Every week there was 12 breads that they would place on the shulchan, on the table, and then a week later, they would remove those breads and they would go ahead and they would place new breads, right? So Kohanim, so what was the story with that? The general, in a regular week of the year, when they would remove the breads of the previous week, they would divide it among the family that placed the breads the week earlier, and the family that's on duty today that removed the bread. However, the Mishnah says a big chidush. What's the big chidush? The big chidush is that the family, that all 25 groups of Kohanim, all 25 families have a right to divide the breads of the Shabbat of the week of the holiday. And you would have thought, why should everybody have to get the bread of that week of the holiday? You would have thought it belongs to the regular families that are on one assignment. There's some more Gemara over there. You would have thought you would have thought it goes to the week, the family whose regular week it is. It's not something unique for the holiday. It's a weekly thing every Shabbat. It's nothing to do with the holiday. Just like the parts, just like the skins of the Shabbat offering that goes on the Mizbeach on Shabbat belongs to the week, that week's Mishmah. You would have thought the Lechem Hapanim, the bread, would also go to that week, whoever's on duty that week, whoever's week it is. Everybody's on duty during the holiday of the holidays, the 3 times the Chagim. But you would have thought this has nothing to do with the holiday, and you would have thought that it should go to that family who happens to be their week. But the chidush, that's the big chidush that we say no. We say that it goes to all 24 mishmarot, divide the lechem haponim. And that's what the Gemara today, if we, the bottom of the page of Nun Hey Amud Beis on 55b, asks the question, Tana Rabbanan, if you go back, 55b3, the Gemara asks, Tana Rabbanan, minayin shekol mishmarot shavot b'chol lechem haponim. How do we know that? What's the source for this chidush that all the groups divide in the lechem haponim? So the Gemara says, Talmud Lomar, now on Nun Vav and Aleph, chelek kechelek yochelek. The pasuk says, after the pasuk says, first the Gemara earlier brought a source in the Torah that everybody, all groups of Kohanim, are on duty the day of during the holiday. It says, Uba b'chol avat nafshecha. It says, V'chayovu halevi ma'achat she'arecha. And the Gemara says, ma'achat she'arecha is talking about a time that everybody comes through one gate. Everybody comes through, in the planes, in the terminal, there's gates, right? Which gate you go into, right? So everybody's coming through this gate. Well, here there's only one gate to go through. Right? There's only one gate. What's the gate? The gate of Yerushalayim. The gate that enters Yerushalayim. Everybody's coming into Jerusalem. And that's it. When is everybody coming to Jerusalem? Everyone's coming to Jerusalem during the time of what? Of the Chagim. And then it says when everybody's coming into that gate in the time of the holiday, then it says the Levi, which Rashi points out that sometimes the Torah refers to the Kohanim as Levi. And the Levi comes, and he comes b'chol avat nafshecha. That means, as long as he wants to come, even though it's not his week, they all have a right to come. And then it says, in that time period, after everybody has the right to come, it says chelek kechelek yochelu. The portion, now chelek kechelek yochelu. Now, what does it mean? Portion for portion they shall eat. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean, chelek kechelek? So the Gemara says, kechelek avodah, the same way they have a right to do avodah in the Beit HaMikdash, kechelek achila. They have a right to go ahead and eat from this item. The item that they have a right to go ahead and, just as the 24 mishmarot have a right to go ahead and do avodah, kechelek avodah, so too they have a right to go ahead, kechelek avodah, kechelek achila. They have rights to go ahead and eat from the lechem haponim. So the Gemara says, what does this refer to? Now the Torah did not say which item are we referring to. It just says chelek kechelek yochelu. They have a right to serve. They have a right to eat. Ma'achila. What type of, in what eating of what korban? Morning, Nathan. Welcome back. And what korban is the Torah saying that they have all equal rights to eat? Which korban is that the Torah is teaching us this law? Ilemer korbanot. If the pasuk is referring to the korbanot of the regalim, again, let's just bring everybody up to date. We have a pasuk that tells us that there's a certain eating, of food that's equally distributed by all, that's equally eaten and equal rights for all of the 24 mishmarot. They all have a right to eat. Now name that korban that's being brought, that the Torah is telling us that that everybody, all 24 groups of Kohanim, have a right to it. Ilema korbanot, if you're telling me it's talking to the korbanot, the sacrifices that were brought, the sacrifice that was brought as a result of the holiday of Sukkot, or the holiday of Shavuot, or the holiday of Pesach, if it's referring to that, ilema korbanot, if it's telling me that they have a right to eat from those korbanot that are brought during the holiday, mehatam nafka, we learn it from a different pasuk. We have another pasuk that tells us they have a right to eat from the korban that's being brought, because it says la kohen hamakriv oto lo yiyeh. There's a general pasuk that says the kohen that brings the korban, la kohen hamakriv lo yiyeh, he has a right. Who gets to eat from the korban? Right, the one who brings it. The one who brings the korban has a right to eat from it. Now, if you all 24 people have rights to bring the korbanos, so you all have rights. And you have to figure out, maybe we have to make a goral. Then we have to make a lottery. Who's the one who's going to bring the korban? We're not going to have all 24 groups bring the korban. You all have rights to bring the korban. You all are in the game. Now who gets the right? Okay, we'll figure it out. But the one who brings it will have the right to go ahead and eat from it and have rights to it. So if it's referring to the korban, the korbanot that are coming as a result of the holiday of the holidays, and we already established that the offerings that are coming as a result of the holiday belongs, all 24 groups are on duty. All 24 groups have rights to bring it. All 24 groups have rights to bring it. So then, and the pasuk says the one who brings it, l'kohen hamakriv, he's the one who eats it. If he's the one who eats it, so I don't need a second pasuk. I don't need a second pasuk. Chelek avodah, according to the portion of the chelek avodah, chelek achila, that you have a right. Another verse to tell me that they have a right to eat it. The ones who do the service of all 24 groups. It can't be referring to the musaf, the extra korbanot that are coming as a result of the holiday, because we already know that they have the one who that you have a right to eat from it. So the Gemara says, Ela lechem haponim. What is it coming to include? Lechem haponim. Now, why is lechem haponim the one, the item that we're saying that it's coming to include? Because the pasuk emphasizes, the Rashi says, the lechem haponim is unique, because let's say today is Shabbat Sukkot, right? Today is Shabbat, it's Sukkot. And what do the Kohanim do who are on duty the Shabbat of Sukkot? They have to remove the lechem haponim. But the avodah, the work that was done in the lechem haponim, was there's no real avodah to be done. The avodah was done last week when they placed it on the shulchan, and they did haktara. They offered the bezichin. They already brought the lavona was brought last week. Where every week the avodah, the lechem haponim, is the day that you place it on the shulchan and you makdir and you bring certain bezichin, certain lavona, certain frankincense on the mizbeach. That's where the avodah is. Today you're just removing it, and therefore, because today you're just removing it, all 24 groups during the time of the holiday. Meaning, if it's the regular Shabbat, it's split between today's group and last week's group, because last week they did it, they placed it on. This week we're going to take it off. And they also brought Shabbat on Shabbat itself. On Shabbat and right, yeah. They're both right. There is we have to look up exactly what time when they was, but the switch was on Shabbat. All right, they switched on Shabbat. The actual switch was on Shabbat, and exactly what time, and we have to look up exactly more details about it. But and also there was a great miracle that happened in the Lechem HaPanim, that the bread remained so fresh, soft, and hot. It's fresh and hot. It's actually found. It was hot. Just sort of talking about hot, the importance of having a nice hot mikveh. The Chafetz Chaim writes to make sure it's a nice, make it comfortable for the women. So you have to make sure that there's a nice. Hashem made a great miracle that that the Lechem HaPanim was nice and hot. But so in general, what happened was in a regular week of the year, like this past Shabbat, it would be split among the last week's people and this week's people. But when it comes to the holidays, the regalim, the Shabbat of the regel, Nathan, then all 24 groups have rights to those 12 breads, 24 families, and it's a special pasuk, even though it's a regular weekly thing, and the fact that the pasuk emphasizes chilek v'chilek yochelu. So the emphasis is about the eating. And the only thing that needs to be done regarding the lechem hapanim now, the main thing, it's not real avodah left. There's really the chila. So the item that has to be the focus is the eating. So that's the item that's unique to the lechem hapanim, in contrast to other items that you have to generally do avodah and eating. So when it says chelek yochelu, it's referring to an item that you don't do any avodah, and you're just going to eat it. Now, so the way one of the commentators explained, he says the pasuk says yochelu. So meaning this, it's referring to an item that what do you got to do? You need to eat. What is the item that only requires eating and not bringing? That's only something lechem hapanim. Everything else you have to bring on that day. The lechem hapanim, there's nothing to do. There's no bringing. You're not bringing it. Yeah, what you got to do is you got to eat it. It already was brought last week. Okay. So the Gemara says, Yachol af b'chovot habaot shalom machmat haregel beregel. You might think maybe the pasuk is telling you that things that are obligatory korbanot that come not machmat haregel beregel, the items that don't come machmat haregel. Let's say a guy goes ahead and obligated himself a neder, right? He said, "I'm going to go ahead." He makes he says, he creates an obligation. It's upon me to bring a korban olah. And then he comes during the holidays, and he wants to bring his korban olah. So what's the law? The law is that the family that's on that week of the holiday, meaning besides all families are on deck. They only come to service all 24 families for things that have to do with the holiday. Things that have nothing to do with the holiday. A guy wants to redeem a pledge that he made in December, and he wants to redeem it on Pesach, has nothing to do with the holiday. He happens to be, it's convenient for him to come during the holiday to bring his pledge. So that goes to that belongs to that whoever Kohanim are on that week of the 24 weeks belongs to, not all 24 groups do not have rights to that offering. Only the group it's their week. But now you're going to ask the question, maybe the same way the Lechem HaPanim belongs to all 24 groups. So maybe Chelek Yochelu, which is telling us that during the holiday season, all groups have rights to eat from the korbanot. So maybe it's coming, and we already know. So maybe it's coming to even include things the same way you're coming to add something that's not part of what you're bringing. So too maybe the Kohanim that are not working that week for that week, meaning the ones that are all the other mishmarot. There's a group, there's the family that's on duty that week. Maybe everybody has a right to eat from those korbanot. The same way that there's a family that's on during the Shabbat of the holiday, and yet all 24 groups have a right to get to the Lechem upon him. So maybe similarly is they have a right to get to any offering that's brought in the Beit HaMikdash during the holiday season. Maybe it's a special law that the Torah is telling you that during holiday season, all 24 groups have a right to benefit and eat from whatever's brought, whether it's brought in honor of the holiday or whether it's brought not in honor of the holiday. Just it's brought because someone had to redeem a pledge. Maybe chelek kechelek yochelu. Everybody has a right to go ahead and eat from it. So the Gemara says, no, we have a pasuk. Talmud Loma, because the pasuk says everybody has a right to eat from it, but the same pasuk says levad mim korav al ha'avot. Besides what was sold by the fathers, what was sold by the fathers? The fathers made up among themselves that this week they created this idea that this week is my week and next week is your week, right? The Torah says Kohanim go. All the Kohanim do avodah in the Beit HaMikdash. Now, so how did they work it out? They said, you know what? They broke it up. The Kohanim, families of Kohanim, I presume when it was, we said originally there was 4 families from Itamar, and 4 families from Elazar. And that's originally there was 8 mishmarot. And then in the days of Shmuel, they went to 16 mishmarot. And then they broke up eventually in 24 mishmarot, time of David HaMelech. So I presume they said among each other, instead of we're all on duty every week of the year, we'll just split it up. We take 1 week, this is mine, this Shabbat belongs to me, that Shabbat belongs to you, and I give you have rights of this Shabbat, I have rights of this Shabbat. Right. The language of the verse is karav, right? Mecher, right? The Torah used the word that it was a mechira. So good morning, Charles. So that's a very good point, Nathan. It could be that they had it, when you own something, you have to really transfer it out. You have to do something. It's a real, I have ownership. I'm saying, when you say allocate, if I go ahead and I say to you, I want to allocate this to you, but that might not be enough did it leave my domain? Allocate is a very light way of, but I want to say, this is yours, this is mine. That doesn't make it yours, this makes it mine. You have to make a kinyan. You have to, if you want to go ahead and, but how did I transfer that right to you? So maybe that's where the language of it's all. But how did all 24? If we all have right, how did everybody? We're all partners in this company. We have 24 shares in this company. How did I give out my share that I have? So there has to be some sort of transfer. So maybe that's why the language of mechira was some sort of sale. Now maybe that's why it was a right. They could have said it like language of kinyan, like in Megillat Ruth, where it talks about how kinyan of Suda, everyone took off their shoe and they gave it to the other one. Whatever the kinyan that they use, the kinyan of Suda, Philippine. Ma machlu avot zelade. What did the avot? What did they sell to each other? So they made a condition. That was a sale of the sale. It was the terms of the sale were ani b'shabati v'ata b'shabatcha. That I'll have my week, you'll have your week. And this tonight, this condition was made regarding all the donations that were brought during the year that the people brought. And this pasuk is telling you anything that's brought as the result of nothing to do with the holiday, just daily and weekly in the Beit HaMikdash, all Kohanim are not equal. Rather, it belongs to the group that's on duty for that. This is my Shabbat. This is my Shabbat. So therefore, if that's the case, so the pasuk that's telling you something else, that everybody's going to be equal, is not referring to those type of korbanot, rather something which is the lechem haponim, which only thing really you have to do is the eating, and there's no real avodah. Now, you see, it does. There is the Ramban. The Ramban says he interesting learns this pasuk that throughout the year there is no. He says levad min korav alavot. The pasuk is telling you there is no obligation to everybody to be serving equally, because levad min korav alavot means you have a right to give up your responsibility to serve, because you could have said that there's an obligation. You're a kohen. Who says you have a right to even give up your responsibility as a kohen? You have a responsibility to serve in the Beit HaMikdash. So maybe you can't just say, I want to give up that. I'm selling that right. I'm not going to serve. I'm not going to serve. I'm off. I'm only working 2 weeks a year. So this pasuk tells us that you have a right to go ahead and everybody to go ahead and be off different times of the year, except you can't take off. Nobody takes off. You can't take off on the holiday. You can't make this deal on the holiday. We'll work this holiday. You work the next holiday. No, you all got to be everybody to work on the holiday. And his opinion is the dividing into mishmarot was a halacha l'Moshe Mishinai. The idea of dividing into the mishmarot. Okay, now we have to look more into exactly regarding the original dividing into groups. Okay. Now here's a very interesting Gemara coming up. Itma. Rav said, Sukkah v'achakav zman. Rav said that Sukkah, that there's a mitzvah. What I'm saying is, the last thing we're just saying is this idea of groups. I mean, based on this pasuk, it comes out there's a Torah allowance for the Kohanim to break up into groups. You have a right. Now the question is, it's just an allowance? Is it did the Torah give this responsibility to break up into groups? So that's a more technical question about that. But we all know there were 20, at the end of the day, there were 24 groups of Kohanim. It started with 8 groups, 4 from Elazar and 4 from Itamar. Now, Rav Amar, let me look at that quote. We had that quote somewhere. See if we can find that quote. It says Moshe, Rashi, it says here, Moshe Rabbeinu divided the Kohanim into 4 mishmarot. 4 from Elazar, 4 from Itamar. Okay. And then, Baruch Hashem, there were more Kohanim were born. And therefore they did this.
More Israeli born, so they're more, proportionally it's still the same. So you're breaking it up into 4 groups, but you have more and more and more animals.
More work to do, right. Right. So the days of Shmuel, with more Kohanim, Shmuel divided into 16, and then David eventually 24. Okay. Back in our Gemara. Batseret Umulahelech. the Mishnah stated that in the holiday of Shavuot, there's also the Shtei Halachem. There's two breads that are brought in honor of the holiday of Shavuot. They were made out of chametz, and there were also the lechem aponim, which were made out of matzah. Lechem aponim was made out of matzah, and the Mishnah stated that when you would give separately, you would give lechem aponim to the kohanim, you would give the shtei halechem to the kohanim, you divide it up, and you need to tell them this is your matzah when you refer to lechem aponim, this is your chametz when you refer to the shtei halechem. And you can't just say, you know what, I'll give up my rights, give me a larger portion of the lechem aponim, and you don't have to give me any the shtei halechem. You can't do that. You can't just say, I'll forfeit my lechem aponim share for the shtei halechem or vice versa. And therefore, the Mishnah stated, you're going to go ahead and you say, Helech matzah. Here's the matzah. Here's from the lechem aponim, and Helech chametz. Here's from the shtei halechem. And the Gemara is going to eventually analyze the order. First, you said, here is your Helech Matzah. First, you mentioned the Lechem Aponim. First, you distribute the Lechem Aponim, and then you distributed out the Shtei Halechem. And the Gemara is going to use that as a possible source for when you have two mitzvot to do, which mitzvah you do first. Right? So here you have the mitzvah of distributing the shtei halechem, the breads that are chametz. You have the mitzvah of distributing the lechem aponim. And yet we say, the Mishnah stated that we go ahead and we do the one that's more tadir, the one that's more frequent, which is the lechem aponim, which is every week you have the lechem aponim. And in contrast to the chametz, the shtei halechem, which is once a year. So we're going to see how that's going to play a role regarding tadir, and now here that will be the connection why the Gemara now goes off on this question of tadir v'she'ena tadir, and it's like a setup for it's going to use our Mishnah to weigh in on the discussion. So itma, Rav Amar Sukkah v'achar asma. Here we are learning Masechta Sukkah, appropriate to talk about the things that relate to Sukkah as well. So Sukkah, when you go to the Sukkah and you have a mitzvah to say Leishiv Basukkah, right? You have a bracha on the Sukkah, bracha on the mitzvah of living in the Sukkah, sleeping in the Sukkah, eating in the Sukkah. There's a bracha you say, Leishiv Basukkah. You also have a mitzvah on the holiday, say Shechianu, in honor of the holiday. Who comes first? Who comes second? Everything in life, everything that we see in Judaism, Torah, the order of things is very important. You have to do things the right way. There's an order, how you do things. So Rav says, Sukkah v'achagazma. Rav says, you say Leishev Basukkah first. That's exactly what we do. And then you say Zman. And then you say the Shechianu. And the second day of Yom Tov, we switch it. Outside of Eretz Yisrael, where we have 2 days of Yom Tov. So the second day of Yom Tov, we switch it. Okay, we'll see more about the halacha as we go around. Our Gemara here referring to the first day of Yom Tov. What do you do the first day of Yom Tov? So Rav says you say Sukkah, Leishiv Basukkah, and then you say Shechianu. But Rav Bachano Amar, he says the opposite. He first says Zman. You first say, how do you like that, Simon? He says, Shechianu, and then you say Leishiv Basukkah. Now, what's the reason for the machloket? The Gemara wants to know. What's the reason for the dispute? You hear the question, Adam? Why do you feel your way? What's wrong with the other way? Very good. So that would be the reason of Rav Bachana. Exactly. But it's interesting the halacha does not follow that, right? So Rav Amar, so the Gemara says, Rav Amar Sukkah v'achagazman. Why does Sukkah come first? because chiyuva di yoma adif, the obligation. I have an obligation to go ahead and sit in the sukkah today. That obligation is something that's unique, in contrast to Shechianu is not something. It's every 3 times a year I have a Shechianu to make. It's not something a specific thing of this day, unique to this day and this day only. However, the Leishev Sukkah is unique for this holiday of Sukkot. It's the obligation of the day to go ahead and sit in the Sukkah. I have this mandate. I have this mitzvah obligation today to sit in the Sukkah, and which does not apply the rest of the year. So therefore, in honor and respect to the Chovat Hayom, in honor to this responsibility that I have, therefore I should go ahead and say the Leisha Basukkah first, and then only after I said the Leisha Basukkah, then I'll say Shechianu, which is not unique for this holiday, because its other holidays have a Shechianu as well. But Leisha Basukkah is unique for this holiday, and this is something, and it's also on a mitzvah that I need to do during this holiday, something my obligation that I need to do, and therefore that should take precedence. However, like Nathan said, Zman Sukkah. I should say Shechianu, and then I should say Sukkah. Why? Because Todir v'Shena Todir Kodev. I say Shechianu more often than Leisha Basukkah. I say Shechianu on every holiday, and therefore I should go ahead and say Shechianu first. And we'll continue tomorrow on this beautiful machloket here in the Gemara. We welcome, what's your name again? Yehuda? We welcome Yehuda and we thank you, Yehuda. Hapam odeh et Hashem. B'li nedeh. Look to see you. Oh yeah. So, yeah, exactly. Because when you say you're going to do a mitzvah, it's like a neder. If you say you're going to go to the Yankee game, it's not you don't have to change your mind. It's not a problem. I'm not saying anything wrong going to the Yankee game, but if you're going to say you're going to come to the class, then it's like Have a great day, everybody.
We say it's always second and contrast, right? We always say Apple.
The obligation of the day first.
And then we say
Right. Generally, right. Except we're going to see the second day of Sukkot. We're going to see. That'll be which you're not used to, right? Okay, very good. Thank